I'm Florence Dowrick, a MajorTim.space honorary young ambassador, and this is Ellie Taylor-Brewin, a MajorTim.space young ambassador. Today, we are at the UK Space Conference, and we are delighted to be interviewing Richard Hollingham. Richard, could you please introduce yourself?
So I'm Richard Hollingham. I'm a science and space journalist.
Could you tell us about Boffin Media, the company you run alongside your wife, Sue Nelson? What inspired its creation?
Well, I'll tell you about the name. So the word boffin is a kind of British name for a scientist, often a sort of crazy-haired sort of scientist. And it's often used in newsrooms. You hear this shout of, so something happened that they want the scientist on, they say, get me a boffin. And so we wanted to own that phrase. So that's how we called it Boffin Media. And so it's sort of grown from that idea. We initially did a little bit of stuff together. Now we make podcasts, we make radio programs, and we both write for the BBC as well.
You've reported from around the world for the BBC, including in Antarctica twice, Libya, Vietnam, Russia, and the top of a missile in Kazakhstan.
Missile silo, not a missile. Because that would be really weird, wouldn't it? I don't want to sit on top of a missile. But that's fine.
Where would you say has been your favourite place to report from your peripatetic career?
Wow, nice words. Very good. I think anywhere polar, really. So the Arctic, the Antarctic. I've been lucky enough to go to Iceland, Svalbard, where we saw polar bears went up on a ship up into the ice just a couple of 100 kilometres from the North Pole. And I think we saw about 10 polar bears over that week. That was an extraordinary trip. And then I've been to Greenland as well, Iceland, and Antarctica. And so in Antarctica, we had this, I think my favourite day of everything I've done, there was this amazing day in Antarctica where we had the use of a helicopter, which is quite cool anyway. And so we went up from the base we were at in Antarctica, went up over the mountains to a dry valley. And dry valley, it looks like Mars. They're amazing. So they're like the surface of Mars, but in Antarctica, so there's no ice. And then we sort of stood around for a bit. I did some filming, and then we went up into the valley, over the valley, and there was a hanging glacier there. So it's like this glacier that kind of hangs over the valley. And then we got dropped off at Shackleton's hut, so the explorer Shackleton's hut, which is so amazing because it's got a penguin colony right next to it. So I sat and had my sandwiches next to these penguins there. And Shackleton's hut, it's just it's very open. It's got a lot of windows. It's really lovely. We got picked up by there for a snowmobile. You'd have to pay a lot of money for this if you weren't a journalist. I got all this for free. I got paid to do this, so it's even better. Got picked up by a snowmobile from there and then taken to Scott's hut. And going into Scott's hut, it was extraordinary because it still sort of smells. It's like they got socks hanging from the bunks. They've sort of restored it. It's almost like they just left. The explorers just left. Yeah. So, and then we went back. That was my best day.
Yeah. When we last met Sue a few weeks ago, she discussed how for the Space Boffins podcast, you both discovered what it's like to undergo G-forces in a centrifuge. Sue explained her experience wasn't quite as taken with this adventure. How would you describe the experience, and do you think this particular training simulator would put you off being an astronaut?
I don't want to be an astronaut. Being an astronaut was horrible. No, I didn't do very well in the centrifuge. I think I don't have a problem with acceleration. Acceleration is fine, but it was the bit at the end. So you whiz around in this thing, and it gets faster and faster. You sort of push; it feels the pressure on you. That's fine, but at the end, it was in this gondola which tips like that. So you tipped at the side, and then when it stops, you go boom, and that was just awful. I get
really motion sick. I couldn't ever.
I mean, I've interviewed a lot of astronauts, and I've been really lucky enough to meet a lot of astronauts, interview a lot of astronauts. Going to space and back sounds horrible, really horrible.
It sounds awesome.
So I don't want
to.
So I'd like to be in space.
Yeah.
But I don't want to
just teleport to space.
Yeah, exactly. Teleportation would be absolutely fine.
It'd be brilliant.
Yeah. But did Sue say I just screamed a lot?
Yeah. That's expected.
Yeah.
You can't really be quiet.
Yeah. No. I did scream a lot, yeah. didn't enjoy it much at all.
You were a launch commentator for the European Space Agency. What did this job involve, and did you see rocket launches up close?
Well, the weird thing about being the commentator is you don't actually see the rocket up close at all because you're in mission control. So I was typically in mission control Moscow, which is on the outskirts of Moscow, near Star City, the sort of famous place where the cosmonauts used to train, where Yuri Gagarin trained. So their mission control, it's almost like a theatre, it looks like. So at the bottom, if you imagine the stalls of a theatre, that's where the control consoles are for where all the flight controllers are. Then there's the big screens at the front showing the sort of progress of the mission. And then we were up on the balcony overlooking all this. And so that's where I did the commentary from. So you get to experience the launch, but from the mission control perspective.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the launch on the screen like everyone else, but you're also hearing what's going on. You're hearing the loops, which are in Russian, but then translated simultaneously. So you can hear what's going on, and then you're sort of describing things. And I think my big worry always was, you're dealing with a launch. If a launch of a satellite goes wrong, and I've commentated on launches of satellites that have gone wrong, I mean, it's fine. No one dies. No one gets injured. No one dies. And there's so many safety. Even if it blew up on the launch pad, the people are not anywhere near that. But with people, you're very conscious. There are people. There are 3 people in that space capsule. So you want to be considerate of that, and you've got to have the back of your mind, well, what happens if you go wrong? What are you going to say? Because you are the voice there. So you've got to think that through. And I actually, because you're worried about that, I wrote down a list of things. So because in that moment you might say the wrong thing. So you had a list of but also you don't want to say something inappropriate that's going to be repeated on the news. You want to say something that's suitable for that occasion, or just say what obviously something has gone wrong. We'll bring you we'll tell you what that is as soon as we know. But you just want to not say something inappropriate at the time.
Yeah. For our final question, what advice would you give to people wishing to pursue a career in field of radio, podcast, producing, or presenting?
I think it's like all these things. You've got to really want to do it. I come across a few people who sort of say, I wouldn't mind a career in the BBC, or I wouldn't mind doing podcasts. Well, you've got to do it. So I wanted to be on the radio from about age 12. I set up a little radio studio at home. My dad had helped me set turntables. I'd play records and had loudspeakers sort of rigged up around the house. And so I wanted to do that. Then I did hospital radio when I was at school. I did student radio when I was at university. My degree's in biology, actually, but I did student radio. I then worked for the local radio station. I volunteered. I used to answer the phones on the late night phone-in on a local radio station. And then I did a journalism course after that, and then started working in local radio. So what I'm doing now, you can't plan for that. I didn't imagine sort of running a production company, having all these podcasts. Podcasts didn't exist, but I'm more or less doing the same thing that I did when I was age 11. I was not playing records anymore, but I'm still talking on the radio, talking on podcasts.
They're very accessible these days. If you have a microphone and you have an app, you can just make a podcast.
Anyone can make a podcast. But if you are going to make a podcast, think about what you want to say, how you're going to start it, what your content is, all those sorts of things.
You don't want to be making all of it up.
No.
As you go.
No, people think they're much better than they are. It's quite hard. It's quite hard to do. So I then see how your career takes you. I had an ambition when I was 12 to be a local radio DJ, and I was. By the age 26, that was my big ambition, and I'd done that. Then I had to rethink what I wanted to do. And here I am now, but I didn't plan for this.
Wow. Thank you so much.
No, you're very welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.